Hello all and welcome to the GMAT Advanced Target 700 Plus program. Today we are going to see the 10th installment of the verbal part, and this is in continuation to the installments 8 and 9 that we have seen. So we are going to discuss the same passage that we took up in the sessions 8 and 9. In session 8 we looked at the mapping technique and how to map out a passage. In the session 9 we discussed some questions that are related to the passage. In today's session, we are going to look at a particular question, but more importantly, we are going to elaborate on a type of question that you often come across in the GMAT exam, right? And the question type that we are going to talk about today is the tone of the passage question, right? So just like, you have the question about the main idea or the main message of the passage, you also have the tone of the author, which is a very common question type and is often very confusing for a lot of aspirants, right? So quickly moving to the passage, a quick recap. We were looking at a passage that was about infrastructure, and it discussed about adequate quantity and reliability of infrastructure are key factors in the ability of countries to compete in international trade, even in traditional commodities. The competition for new export markets, especially dependent on high quality infrastructure. One approach to assessing the economic returns from infrastructure investment is to examine the rates of return in a large sample of completed projects. The average economic return on infrastructure projects, re-estimated after loan disbursement, has averaged around 15%. Returns have been lowest for irrigation and drainage, airports, railways, power, water supply, and sewerage. Why should this be so, given the expected benefits of such investments in developing countries? Some of the causes relate to implementation problems and others to project identification and design. A common pattern discovered in project completion reviews of water, railway, and power projects is the tendency at the time of appraisal to overestimate the rate of growth in demand for new production capacity and therefore of revenues. For the power projects in the sample, demand was overestimated by 20% on average over a 10-year operating period. In water projects, overestimation of rates of new connections and per capita consumption also averaged about 20%. In the case of railways, until recent years, projects often assumed recovery in demand, even where railways were continually losing traffic to roads, offering better service. In 29 of 31 cases, freight traffic failed to reach its projected level, and in one-third, traffic actually declined. One important explanation for this misjudgments during appraisal is inadequate procedures for assessing demand, including the effects of tariff increases. Oversizing and inappropriate design of investments then occur, resulting in financial burdens on the project entities concerned. Infrastructure is a necessary, though not sufficient, precondition for growth. Adequate complements of other resources must be present as well. The growth impact of infrastructure investments also depends on the timing and location of additions to capacity and on the existing imbalance between supply and demand. Because much infrastructure consists of networks, relieving bottlenecks at certain points of the system can produce very high returns. So this was a quick read of the passage. If you want to read the passage in more detail, I would suggest you go back to the sessions 8 and 9. There we have discussed the whole mapping technique, and we have kind of looked at all aspects of this particular passage. So we are not going to spend too much time in this particular video on the passage. We are only going to treat this passage as a springboard for us to learn about the tone of the passage question. Okay. So let's look at this particular question. The tone of the author throughout the passage can be best described as, okay. So even before we get into the discussion of the tone of the passage, I would, let you guys take a shot at this particular question and let's see where we'll get. Okay. So option A says alarmed. Okay. So even without thinking about tone of the passage in general, and I'm going to come to that, how we discover the tone of the passage. Take a moment and think about option A. Okay, so option A says alarmed. So what does the word alarmed mean? Alarmed means that if you are looking at a particular situation and then you think that there is some cause of worry or some cause of panic, or you have a kind of like a remedy in place where you think that, oh, this thing is going down. I think we should be looking at it more seriously, right? Now, if you look at the entire passage, there's hardly any place where the author looks alarmed or or is very very concerned about what is going on. In fact, he looks at all the possible reasons that might be affecting project returns. He takes some examples. He suggests what can be done, right? So alarmed, there is absolutely no paragraph also that is covering any kind of alarm. Okay, so definitely it's not alarmed. Option B says remediating. Now, what is meant by the word remediation? Remediation means that if you have identified a particular problem, you think of the solutions that should be there. In the solutions that should be placed so that that particular problem can be taken care of. Okay. Now, if you've looked at the passage, closely, you would see that the author acknowledges the causes that are related to the identification problems or the design problems or the rate of growth and etc. But he does not propose any kind of remediation or corrective measure. Okay, so he's talking about you're losing traffic. He's talking about that you're overestimating growth. He's talking about there is one of the important explanation for misjudgment is inadequate procedures for assessing demand. But he's not saying that, oh, look at this, this is the wrong approach. You must use the right approach. Okay, there are no remedial measures that have been recommended by the author at any point in time. Okay, he's pointing out very clearly about what are the reasons for the whole rate of return not being as expected. But there is no remedial. You have kind of like a very small relieving bottlenecks at certain points of the system can produce very high returns, right? You have kind of like a very very small indication of what should be done, but there is no major focus on remediation, right? And just on the basis of that one line, we cannot say that the tone of the author throughout the passage. Okay, this is important. It has to be throughout the passage. So there is no remediation. Option C says criticizing. Okay. Now, see, this is going to be a very, very significant area for all of you because critical is one of the options that keeps coming up in a lot of questions. Okay. And there are two ways of looking at it. When it says criticizing, it is used in a negative connotation. Not necessarily critical. It is a common misunderstanding that critical and criticize, they mean the same. Criticize definitely has a negative connotation. Critical does not have a necessarily negative connotation. Now, if you look at this passage, the author has nowhere criticized the projects, the approach, or any of the shortcomings. Probably he believes that these shortcomings are inherent in the system. Even if he does not, he is in no way criticizing any of the elements. The performance, the people who are looking at it, why they are going wrong. He's not criticizing all of that. Mocking means when you are criticizing, but at the same time, you are also ridiculing the whole proposition. Okay, so a negative connotation plus ridicule is what mocking is, right? Now, we have not seen the author criticizing, so even mocking is out of the question, right? So the negative connotation plus ridicule was supposed to become mocking. Neither we have this, nor do we have this. So definitely it's not mocking. Look at analytical. Now the author introduces a problem statement. Okay, as we have seen in the mapping technique, he talks about all the reasons, basically all the logical parts, and analyzes the factors that would have had an impact. Okay, so if you go back, there is an introduction, there is a proper approach, there is benchmarks that are discussed, there is a dilemma, there is a reasoning, there are examples, explanations, there is an argument, there is external info, there is solution, and there is conclusion, right? So all of these point to a very, very analytical approach. So what is an analytical approach? An analytical approach is where you reason out, where you build logical reasoning, where you evaluate the facts, against data that might have been there. There is data that is presented, and he's saying that 20% on an average over a 10-year operating period. He's talking about a benchmark which is 15%. Wherever you see these kind of questions, these kind of figures, it is a very, very good indicator that it is an analytical passage, right? Which now brings us to the bigger question of what are the different tones of a passage. Okay, and I'm going to spend some time on discussing this issue because you will see these questions a lot of times. Okay, tones of a passage, right? Now see, broadly, the good thing is that you will broadly see three type of tones. Okay, the first and easiest is a passage can only be descriptive. And what is meant by descriptive? It is a very, very neutral approach. Okay, and it will talk about all the facts and figures. You will lay out the passage, you will discuss everything that is going on. You'll probably lay out the canvas really, really well, but you will not take any positions on that, right? So I can lay out all elements and let the reader be the judge. Okay, now this is followed by what you can say is an analytical approach. Sorry. What do you cover in an analytical approach? In an analytical approach, apart from descriptive, you will also which will be in favor, they will be against, right? There might be some data that might be presented. Just like we have seen, there might be some examples given. Well, examples can be a part of both descriptive as well as analytical. A lot of these examples will be kind of like data, that benchmark says something. You will see that some other approach is also discussed, another approach to doing the whole thing is discussed, and etc., etc. So basically descriptive is kind of like where the author is the most neutral. Then you have analytical, where the author discusses a few things. And the third primary one is where the author takes a stance. Okay, so the author's position becomes important. Now, in this kind of approach, the author might be discussing several approaches. Right? But will still have his or her own approach. So these three are going to broadly be, the tones of a particular passage. Now this is tone. Now, if you've seen in the last passage, it says alarmed, remediating, criticizing, mocking, analytical. Okay, these are in no way mapping out to the three that we have discussed. Okay, now tones plus the level of polarity make for different combinations. Okay, now what do I mean by the levels of polarity? See, I can be criticizing something. Okay, let us say I am against. I can be against something in a mild manner, or I can be against something in a very, very extreme manner, right? And if I am extremely against a particular topic, I might turn out to be caustic. Okay, so the options that you see, they will be a combination of one of these basic tones plus the polarity, right? Similarly, if let us say I'm being very, very descriptive, right? When I am descriptive, I might be describing it in a very, very neutral manner. However, I may add humor to the whole thing. A neutral descriptive approach along with humor can turn out to be sarcastic. Okay, so sarcastic can be one tone, caustic can be one tone, but where are they being derived from? They are being derived from the underlying category of a descriptive tone with a humorous polarity, right? Just like I said, somebody might be mildly in favor, somebody might be mildly disagreeing, somebody might be strongly disagreeing, somebody might be mildly disagreeing, right? Somebody might be overwhelming, somebody might be underwhelming, okay? And they can be overwhelmingly descriptive or underwhelmingly analytical, right? So whenever you are looking at a passage, you might want to break it down into the tone as well as the polarity, and then you will have all sorts of adjectives that can be there, so for example, you might come across a question where it says that the tone of the passage is aggressive. Okay, so it might be descriptive plus strong. Somebody might say that the tone of the author is belligerent. Okay, it is kind of like, it is very strong, he is very aggressive, plus he would have taken a stand. What is taken a stand? Taken a stand means that he's part of the tone is taken a stand and it is very, very strong. So a strong polarity, this is your polarity, plus the three tones that we have discussed, both together have led to the tone of the passage becoming belligerent, right? So you'll have all kinds of combinations that you can build. You'll probably have cynical, you will have contemptuous, you will have apologetic, so on and so forth. What is the apologetic theme? Apologetic would derive from the fact that it might be an analytical one plus mild. Okay, it might be a, it will definitely not be take a stand. Generally, a apologetic one will be analytical only, and it can be mild or strong, depending on the same. If let us say we are talking about, let us say a humanistic approach. Okay, so a humanistic approach is kind of like, that has a strong, probably it will be a descriptive one or an analytical one, and it will be taking a human issues probably strongly or mildly. Okay, so you're getting what I'm saying. These are just adjectives. The question might be that what is the tone of the passage, but humanistic in itself is an adjective that is being underlying, in an underlying manner, it is being derived from the tone plus the polarity. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to leave you with this particular thought, and I'm going to recommend that, you go and do a lot of digging yourself about what are the different tones of a passage which might appear as answer options. And a lot of these might be, probably adjectives that you might not really be clear about. Their meanings might be very, very different. Okay, so you can have a lot of fancy words. For example, if let us say it says a word like, let us say, obsequious, So this might just be a very, very strange and fancy and foreign word that you might have not seen. So I would suggest you guys go do some research on what can be the different tones, what are the different words that can be used to denote the tone of a passage, understand its underlying meaning, because it is a very, very important topic, just like the main theme or the main message or the main idea or the central idea question. Similarly, tone is also a very important topic. What I will do is that in the next session, I will devote the whole session to laying out all of these different words and what is it that they mean and how we can map it to, the whole framework of polarity as well as tone that we have developed. All right. Until that, don't forget to subscribe and get all the videos of this series. Don't forget to like so that we stay motivated to prepare more such videos and add to the series. And it will also go around in our network as well as your network so that more and more people can benefit from these videos. Okay. Till then, keep preparing. I'll see you in the next installment.